Hey there, fan of the channel, I hope. Just a quick message from Mr. Hyrule Gamer himself. We are currently on the push to 100,000 subscribers, a lifelong dream of mine. Well, more around 8 years, so almost half of my life. So I ask kindly that if you enjoy the content, please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Drop a like on the videos, as that alone helps so damn much to tell YouTube to recommend these videos more. And together, let's achieve the goal. Thank you, and on to the video. The state Hyrule was left in following the attack of Calamity Ganon is unsettling. Places that were once lively and full of joy now stand still, consumed by nature and left in a pile of rubble. But some locations may hold more than just the story of the past. Some locations may have a story still being written. For example, the Akkala Citadel. This was once Hyrule's greatest fortress of defense, an impregnable stronghold built into the rocks of Akkala, cannons facing all directions, legions of soldiers at the ready, and an inside which remains a mystery. We got a brief look at the inside of this location in Koei Tecmo's spin-off title Age of Calamity, but this wasn't the entirety of the Citadel, nor was it 100 years later, which is exactly what I am interested in. What is inside the Akkala Citadel in Breath of the Wild? And I guess its sequel, as it appears to be taking place directly after Breath of the Wild. Be sure to go and grab yourself a snack or drink and send them in to get featured right here, and let's now investigate, explore, and speculate on what could be inside the mighty Akkala Citadel. Firstly, let's inspect the outside of the Citadel in its current state. When we find this location, the main entrance, which is located at the bottom of a tower, shows us the damage immediately. The bridge leading to the entrance has collapsed and has multiple ruined guardians on both sides, just reminding us of how brutal the attack was. The doorway to enter the Citadel is blocked with rubble from presumably rockfall and mud from above. The spiraled staircase around the outside of the Citadel, however, is for the most part fully intact. It has become home to a few bokoblins who have also decorated it a little, but other than that, the staircase is fine. We see a few ledges along the way, but there isn't much here. Perhaps there was once little lookout stations here, or rest points, but who knows. As soon as you reach the top of these stairs, things begin to get interesting. Most notable, we have the Akkala Tower piercing through the top of the Citadel, doused in a pool of Malice, which is something we will be talking about shortly. Up here, we can find a few buildings that have seen better days. Presumably these were lookout points and possibly even barracks for those on lookout to sleep in turns. On the inside of these structures surrounding the tower, we can find some sort of study. We see rooms exactly like this in Hyrule Castle, so it probably wasn't anything noteworthy, but cool to mention. Oh, and something interesting that I want to mention, which I think some players don't notice, is that although the Citadel is built into the rock, some of the rock has also collapsed on some sections no longer accessible. For example, on the way to top, you can find small ledges like this with trees. Now, there is no way to actually reach here other than climbing or paragliding, meaning the rock here is actually covering an area no longer accessible. Aside from this, there is one mid-tier section with more cannons aiming outward and the courtyard at the very bottom. But the main thing to take away from these ruins is the pool of Malice around the tower. Look closely, this pool isn't just sitting there, rather it is seeping through the tower and into the Citadel. And we can confirm this by looking at other Sheikah towers. This inside netting part thing goes all the way down, meaning the Malice we see here isn't just on the surface, it's on the inside. But that must also mean this Malice is an overflow of sorts from the inside, which is exactly where we are headed. Before I continue, I should mention that we did see some of the inside in Age of Calamity, but this is by no means the entire Citadel. There were closed doors, inaccessible areas, and just from general presumption, this wasn't all to it. I personally believe that there are many levels going deeper underground, along with more rooms throughout the entire thing leading up to the top that we never saw. So what could we find if we get the chance to explore this place in Breath of the Wild's sequel? Firstly, darkness. If it wasn't obvious already, this place was caved in at all entrances, and anywhere on the inside that would have been lit by torches would have burnt out by now. A source of light would be required first and foremost, but I couldn't see this being an issue in comparison to what else may be in here, as ultimately you could just relight some torches. Tracking back to the elusive Malice pool I mentioned, we see that it is coming from the inside of the Citadel, and in Age of Calamity we can actually see the tower piercing through the inside, but not at the highest level. When we are inside the fortress fortress in Age of Calamity, we cannot climb to the very top, and I'd like to think you could access the top from the inside, as I can't imagine an entire army using this staircase all at once. That Malice flow is most likely consuming an entire floor of the Citadel to the point where it is now outpouring to the surface. This is likely just built up in the top floor, as if it was flowing down even further, it would likely fill up the lower levels, as I doubt the entire Citadel is full. Now, during the Calamity, we know the primary source of the attacks was the Guardians. However, it was also fueled heavily by monsters such as Bokoblins and Moblins, and there were likely many which got inside during the attack, and probably many which got trapped inside here. That, with the Malice which has found its way in here, both at the pool at the top and any other Malice found inside, which we can assume is in here, as the concentration of attacks was immense, which would cause a build-up of Malice. I mean, we don't really know how a Malice pool forms, but we know it stems from Calamity Ganon and can be found all over the land, especially in the attacked areas, such as the Akkala Citadel. I think that throughout the 100 years of this place being blocked off, an infestation of Malice-infused monsters could form. This would stem from any monsters still within the Citadel as it fell, and all of the Malice inside. If we do get to explore it, I definitely see some sort of Malice monster being present. But aside from monsters, in terms of explorability, I feel that there are two main points of interest: the lower levels and what could be down there, and the Sheikah Tower piercing through the entire building. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, there is definitely a lot more depth to this fortress than seen in Age of Calamity. If entering the lower levels becomes a possibility, I think that we will uncover a lost dungeon. Now no, I do not mean that there was already a dungeon here. Well, kind of. What I mean is that there was a dungeon down here, but not in a bad way 100 years ago. You know, the type of place to keep prisoners, armories, barracks, and possibly even secret projects developing new weapons or technology. Similar to Snow Peak Ruins in Twilight Princess formerly being a military home turned dungeon. I think that this would also double well as a way to bring back some of that classic Zelda feel, which was a common complaint with Breath of the Wild in the dungeon department. I don't want to go too heavily into it, as I have covered it in other videos which I'll link below, but if there was some sort of dungeon to explore down here, the theme could be a Malice infested dungeon which contains a lost relic or something along those lines, which Link needs to recover for Princess Zelda. The entire questline would include gaining entry to the Citadel, venturing through the main levels and fighting off whatever monsters live here, and eventually reaching the lower levels beneath the ground and uncovering a lost dungeon which has all sorts of unknown creatures and puzzles to take on, with the boss being some sort of Malice monstrosity that has accumulated over the past 100 years, and once we beat it, we find this lost relic. I think that would be really cool and could be possible. But on the other side of things, the tower. If there isn't a dungeon down here, or even if there also is, but let's now assume that there isn't, I would like to speculate that we would enter the Citadel alongside Princess Zelda in order to inspect the Sheikah Tower at the very bottom. After getting things underway with the princess, she brings up wanting to figure out exactly why the towers rose when Link awoke, or more so the technology behind that, and suggests that we should check out the Akkala Citadel to see if there is maybe some sort of way down there, which there might in fact be. This would result in exploring the lower levels of the Citadel in a similar fashion to my dungeon idea, but rather than a dungeon being down here, we find an old abandoned passageway further down into the ground, created by the Sheikah long ago, for when a time comes that someone must venture down here. And the whole plot of this quest could be that only the ancient Sheikah and royal family knew of this passageway, and only now has Zelda had the time to investigate. We could work our way down the depths of the underground until reaching the very bottom of the Sheikah Tower, and be given an explanation as to how exactly they work and what triggers them to rise. This would be so cool, as many fans wanted explanations to a lot of the newly showcased Sheikah technology, and this would be a great, fun and adventurous questline to do so. If neither of those, then I'd suspect it to entirely be flooded in Malice, meaning we wouldn't really be able to enter it or repair it anytime soon. But of course, these three ideas are purely speculation, and don't really have too much ground to say that they're true, but this is just what I believe could be inside the Akkala Citadel. Thanks a ton for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing for more Zelda content. What do you think is inside the Akkala Citadel come the time frame of Breath of the Wild and its sequel? Leave a comment below and look out for my replies. As always, a huge heartfelt thank you goes out to all of my supporters across Patreon and YouTube. I cannot express to you enough how helpful and appreciated the support is. If you'd like to join them here at the end of all of my videos, get yourself a shout out upon joining and more, then consider supporting via Patreon or YouTube. Again, thanks for watching, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.